the Centurion, and the Sparrow. Centurion Lucius ruled his frontier garrison with an iron fist, believing that only through fear could he forge soldiers worthy of Rome's eagles. His scarred face remained stone-cold as he drilled his men mercilessly, and his voice boomed across the training grounds like thunder from Jupiter himself. When Lucius barked an order, even veteran legionnaires jumped to attention, their hands trembling as they gripped their gladii. Discipline through dominance. Adjunctifits, he would tell his officers. A soldier who fears his commander more than the enemy will never break in battle. One crisp morning, as Lucius conducted his daily inspection of the barracks, a tiny brown sparrow suddenly darted from the wooden rafters and struck his bronze helmet with surprising force. The bird circled back with fierce determination, her wings beating frantically as she chirped in alarm, defending the small nest of twigs and mud tucked carefully above the main doorway. Lucius staggered back a step, more from surprise than pain, and brushed the dust from his red horsehair plume. Several soldiers nearby suppressed smiles at the sight of their feared commander being challenged by a creature no larger than his fist. "Foolish creature," Lucius sneered. His pride stung. He straightened his bronze breastplate and turned to address his men with renewed authority. "Remove that nest immediately. I will not have Roman soldiers distracted by a bird's mindless theatrics during training." A young recruit named Gaius, barely 18 and still soft-faced from his mother's cooking, stepped forward with obvious reluctance. His voice wavered as he spoke. "Sir, with respect, perhaps we could leave the nest be? That sparrow shows remarkable courage, defending her young against enemies so much larger than herself. Surely there's honor in such devotion." The other soldiers shifted uncomfortably, knowing their centurion's temper. Lucius's eyes narrowed to slits, and his weathered hand instinctively moved to rest on his sword hilt. "Courage?" Lucius's voice dripped with contempt. "This is mere animal instinct, boy, nothing more than a beast's blind panic. True strength comes from inspiring fear in others, not from protecting the weak and helpless." He gestured dismissively at the sparrow, who continued her brave aerial assault despite the futility of her efforts. A leader who coddles will find his throat cut by those he sought to protect. Learn this lesson well if you wish to survive your first campaign. That very night, as if the gods themselves sought to test Lucius's philosophy, barbarian raiders struck the camp under cover of darkness. War cries pierced the night air as painted warriors poured through gaps in the palisade, their torches casting dancing shadows across the chaos of clashing steel and dying men. In the confusion, Lucius found himself separated from his main force, driven back toward the officers' quarters by the tide of battle. 3 massive Germanic warriors cornered him against the wooden wall, their long swords gleaming orange in the firelight. Their bearded faces split into savage grins as they recognized the red cloak and bronze armor of a Roman officer. "Tonight, Roman dog, you die far from home," growled their leader in broken Latin. Lucius raised his gladius, knowing his chances were slim. He had faced death before, but never had the odds been so hopeless. The barbarians advanced slowly, savoring their anticipated victory. Suddenly, young Gaius burst through the smoke and flame, his sword singing as he struck down one attacker from behind. Though barely trained and trembling with terror, the recruit fought with the desperate fury of the little sparrow, placing himself between his centurion and certain death. His blade work was clumsy but determined, his shield arm shaking as he parried savage blows that would have felled veteran warriors. "Run, sir!" Gaius shouted over the din of battle. "Save yourself!" But Lucius, seeing the young man's selfless courage, found his own strength renewed. Together they fought, the experienced centurion and the untested recruit, their backs to the wall and their hearts beating as one. As dawn's first light painted the sky purple and gold, the surviving raiders melted away into the forest. Lucius knelt beside Gaius, who sat propped against the barracks wall, blood seeping through his mail, but his eyes bright with life. Looking up at the little sparrow's nest, still intact above the doorway, Lucius finally understood what the boy had tried to tell him. The young man's compassion for the tiny bird had revealed not weakness, but the very quality that made him willing to die for others. True courage, born of love, not fear. From that day forward, Lucius led his men not as a tyrant, but as a guardian. His soldiers followed him not because they feared his wrath, but because they trusted his protection. And high above them all, the little sparrow continued to tend her young, a small reminder that the greatest strength lies in shielding those who cannot shield themselves.